Hi guys, I'm Ben Larkham from experttabletennis.com, and today's video is all about how to build your own custom table tennis bat. So what I mean by that is how to buy your blade and the rubbers separately and then glue them together and make the bat yourself. Now to go about doing that, you're going to need a few things. Obviously you're going to need to get yourself a table tennis blade. Now this is my bat with my old rubbers on that I'm going to be taking off. You're going to need a couple of sheets of rubber. You can get those from any table tennis shop. These are Tenergy 05, that's what I'm going to be using. You're going to need to get yourself some table tennis glue. This is a Butterfly Free Chack that I use. You're going to need some of these funny looking things, which are yellow bits of sponge that you use to apply the glue. You'll need some kind of roller. This is a table tennis roller that holds balls as well, but any kind of roller will do. And finally you're going to need a sharp pair of scissors to go about cutting the rubber. Right, so the first thing you're going to need to do if you're replacing rubbers is peel those rubbers off. So to do that you're going to want to start peeling from an edge, stuff these down quite well, and then they normally recommend you to peel from side to side. Next thing we're going to want to do is get into these rubbers. So here I've got some Tenergy 05. This is 2.1 millimeters. Next thing we're going to need to do involves these little yellow things here. So I don't know if you can see this. These are kind of like little yellow bits of sponge. And you can buy these from Butterfly or other table tennis brands. You get a little clip as well. All you want to do is just slot the little bit of sponge in there, and that would be ready to use. And get rid of those sponges. I would recommend 2 coats of glue onto each sponge. So you're going to want to apply glue over the whole sponge, wait for that layer to dry first. When it's dried, then apply another one, wait for that to dry. Then it should be ready to be stuck down. Sometimes, because these rubbers are completely fresh, they tend to just really drink up the glue and it might need a third layer before it starts to actually feel sticky to the touch. But we'll go ahead with 2 and see how we get on now. You don't want to apply too much glue. You start applying loads of glue, it's not really going to dry properly. You really just want one kind of like thin layer, let that dry, and then you can stick another one on. So I'll start off with these rubbers. I'm going to get a little bit on the sponge and then start rubbing that in. I want to try and cover the whole sponge with the glue. The good thing to remember when you're gluing up, you can always add more glue. So I've added a few other bits there to make sure it's all covered. Once you start chucking on too much glue, it can be really hard to get it off, so always go for less first. Let me just show you that. If you can see that, the difference between that one and this one, which isn't glued, so it's just got a very fine covering of glue there, and I'm going to leave that for about 5 minutes to dry. Put that to one side, and I'll do the same thing with my second rubber. Right, you can see from that one that I've just done, still pretty wet. That one's drying a little bit more. We kind of want it to really soak in before we think about putting another layer on. Okay, this first one that I glued is getting pretty dry, so I'm going to go ahead and give that a second coat. Anyway, that's got its second layer on. We'll leave that to dry. I think this one I put a tad more glue on the first time round, so I'm going to give that a couple more minutes before I add its second layer. Okay, I'm going to put a second layer onto the red sheet now, and then again it'll just be a waiting game, waiting for both of those to dry. Okay, I think it's about time to start gluing my blade. Just shuffle those over. So it's the black rubber that's most on its way to being ready to be stuck down, so I'm going to make sure that side of my bat is ready to go. Get any bits off it. If you have got any glue residue stuck on your bat, you don't want that getting in with the fresh glue. It's pretty clean. And then just one layer on the blade is all I normally go for. You can get quite a lot of glue on there, and it will normally dry relatively quickly, the blade. It's not going to be soaking in as much as the rubbers. And we'll leave that to dry for a couple more minutes. And that black rubber is almost done, but I'm not going to rush it yet. I'm going to leave that to dry for just a few minutes longer before sticking it down. I'll just show you the difference between these two. So that's the black sheet there, there's the red sheet. Now this one is very, very almost done. This one's going to need a few more minutes more. Just see a little bit of glue still remaining there. I think that really is the key, just making sure you let the glue all dry before you stick it down. It should be kind of sticky to touch, but clear and dry, as opposed to being still white and a bit wet. I'm always tempted just to stick it down when it's still a little bit wet, but today I've really waited for quite a long time. I think given that about 10 minutes to dry fully. So it's now sticky, completely clear, and I'm ready to go about sticking it down. So pop the bat down on the edge of the table, make sure that's all clean. Remember, this has got one layer of glue on. The sponge has got 2 layers. I'm going to get my roller ready, then just gently roll it out. I don't want to stretch the rubber. Flip that over. Line it up. There we have it. First rubber is stuck down. Now, if one of the big mistakes is not letting the glue dry, I think the second big mistake is probably sticking that side down, then gluing the blade again, sticking the other rubber down, having both rubbers stuck down before you start cutting. It's really tricky to cut the rubber if you've got both sides stuck down. So you want to make sure that the first one you put down is cut before you worry about sticking the next one down. This way you can really get into it and cut yourself a decent shape. Make sure your scissors are sharp, and then you just want to try and hug the line of the blade. And there we have it. Black rubber is finished. And that's our leftover rubber bit. Okay, so next step, we're going to put another coat, or our first coat, onto the other side of the blade. Make sure that's all clean, not got any bits of glue left on it. And then I'll pop one relatively large coat onto this side. My red rubber is looking a lot less white now. That's pretty much completely clear. So that's going to be ready to be stuck down in it. We're done with our glue, so I can get rid of that. Now I think a tub like that costs about £10, £15, and this has lasted me for absolutely years. So I think I've had this about 4 years now. And yeah, it's still about half full, so if you buy one of those, you're not going to get through that very quickly. These things, you're just going to throw away that yellow sponge, keep the blue holder obviously. I guess in summary, if I had to give kind of a few key points, I would say firstly, make sure you've got all the right equipment. So use table tennis glue, don't try and use any other different glue that you might just happen to have around the house. Then you're going to need to really take the time to let the glue dry. So just be patient. I think today it's possibly taken about half an hour to do all this in total, with all the kind of breaks in the middle to let the glue dry. If you don't let it dry and try and stick it down when it's wet, or add second layers when it's wet, you're going to be paying for it later. And then remember, cut the rubber first before sticking down the second rubber. You really don't want to get yourself in trouble trying to cut rubbers when you've got two already stuck down. And there we have it. Right, rubbers are on. Okay, then last thing I would do, you got your battle cut, you got your rubbers. Just grab a load of heavy books or something. I'm going to grab some from here. Right, so that's it done. I'm going to leave that under there for, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes or so, just to make sure it's all really compacted and stuck on. Check out the video coming later this week. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you over at experttabletennis.com. Thanks guys.